Lee Herrick is the author of Gardening Secrets of the Dead, This Many Miles from Desire, and Scar and Flower. His poems appear widely in literary magazines and anthologies, including Indivisible, Poems of Social Justice, and Here, Poems for the Planet, with an introduction by the Dalai Lama, forthcoming from Copper Canyon Press in March 2019. With Leah Silvius, he is the co-author of The World I Leave You, Asian American Poets on Faith and Spirit, forthcoming in spring 2020 by Horizon Books. Born in South Korea and adopted to the United States, he's a former Fresno Poet Laureate and teaches at Fresno City College and the MFA program at Sierra Nevada College. All right, please join me in welcoming Lee to the stage.
Thank you very much, Kazumi, and Jason, and Michelle, if you're here. Thank you for all the work you do at Kearny Street Workshop. Could we give them a hand? I'm hoping this is okay, volume-wise. Is this okay? Okay, and thank you, Clara, for having us in this beautiful space.
I'm going to call you up, Clara. You can call me up later.
Okay. I am really happy to be here. I'm excited and happy to read with Reese, whose work I love, and so happy to share the stage with the community readers. Can we give them a hand too? That was amazing. So Scar and Flower came out in January, and I'm just going to read through some of these poems, and then at the end I was going to read about 4 short paragraphs from a memoir in progress. Scar and Flower was written over about 4 years, and mainly I was thinking about violence and trauma and suicide and specifically American gun violence. And so I'm going to start with some of those poems. In 2014, there were many deaths, including Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, who was 12, Michael Brown. And as I was writing this poem, it did not come out in any kind of linear grammar sequence, and I think you might get that from the poem. What I hear when I hear you in my head is the little whisper, the aggregate sorrow, the father's heavy weeping as the son's heavy weeping. What I hear is your artistic response after the massacre, the family of clasped hands, brown hands, black hands, a small child whose brother never had a chance, who holds her father's tearful face and says, "Your eyes are like the moon," is what I hear when I hear you in my head this evening, your laughter like tiny harps. I hear your fatigue as another way to say deprivation. I hear recount, retally. A retaliation is what I hear when I hear you in my head, is the grace, the charm, the dead, the boy, the dead boy. The boy who died because of the fear, the forest in the other man's heart, the gun, the heartbreak is the sound I hear when I hear you in my head. It's how we each sigh with distinction, where fatigue meets fire, where we wake and wonder if we all go out to a field tonight, sit by a fire, say the most honest thing you've ever said in your life. Would any dead boy or girl reappear? Not like a mirage, but reappear. Not like a voice in my head, but a body in this room, with flesh and bones, with his big smile and orange blossoms in his billowing hair. In 2016, I was teaching in New York for Kundiman, and it was about a month after the shooting in Orlando, 2016, the Pulse nightclub shooting. And the poet Amy Nezukamatatil was doing a writing exercise for the fellows, and I decided to jump in and write one too. She asked people to write about a flower. Rose. This sudden desire to bloom near the astonishing splendor of the swamp, there you are, unexpected and delivered grace, rose and botany, petal and lure. When the tourists leave, tell me if you get tired. Why are you the queen? In another country, you are not royalty. Tell me, Rose, about root, soil, wilt. I'm stealing a petal, and I know it's a crime. I want the petal to fly from this botanical garden to Orlando, where I cannot place a rose on any altar, but where I imagine 49 roses near a swamp, in a park, where even small children know, don't terrorize the birds. Let no person deliver terror in a park, in a school, in a dance club. No terror in a dance club. I want to be quiet. The roses admit they do not know why they bloom, but they do. The pulse, its rose, doing its loveliness in a time of disaster, dancing like the world was on fire. God. Sometimes I start to depress myself when I'm reading. Does this happen to you? Take a water break. So I'm one of, estimates say, around 200,000 or so adopted Korean people. And as a writer, sometimes you're asked to write things for that community. And I did not know Philip Clay, but to make a long story short, he was adopted to the U.S., Philadelphia, I believe, when he was 8, and was deported. There's a horrible loophole that Congress hopefully will take care of. But anyway, Philip Clay was deported, and then in 2017 committed suicide, and I was asked to write a poem for his memorial. And you write that poem, and you're asked to write that poem, So this is Elegy for Philip Clay. In my dream, when you fell through the sky from 14 stories high, all burning paper, your body broke into 100 flowers and floated into the clouds. The moon and stars, still. Your fire now ash, your spirit free, wild and true, in a deep calm, where country is a black night, a blank question of insufficient starlight, where no child, man or woman, no idea as beautiful as you is ever deported, is only the harsh light of your deepest wound. I wish I could have eaten your fire and howled with you. Eclipse, fracture, angelic cloud song. May the wild and broken stars remember you. May you be at peace in a quiet part of the sky. Stars. Every now and then, I remember I was born on the other side of the world, and it makes sense that I love looking at the stars. Little Apocalypse, The Human Condition, The Bell Tribe, clusters I invent above the field where I kissed a woman with hair like black gold. When Van Gogh looked out his asylum room window and painted Starry Night, the stars above his country went blank for an instant. You wouldn't have noticed. His hands all flurry and oils, energy and devour, like fire. Here, a moon with feathery wings. There, a spangled crush of cloud. In his eyes, the stars like madness. In the stars, your country and silver shots of light. In the window, your best self, your supernova, your midnight prayer against dying. This is a short poem against suicide. Stay. I am not what you thought an ocean would look like, but once a fire starts in you, there will always be ash. There are long walks, thank goodness. There are woods to be small in. There are anchors to the world, so you will not fly away before it is time. The miracle of grass, even though you may forget it. The fact that you are loved, even though you may forget it. And what a miracle that is, being loved, or more so, that you are a wide blue ocean capable of loving, you churning body of sea life who survived the oil spills, the broken glass, and the dead birds floating in the bay. I think the last three I read from the second part of the book. The second part of the book is more about how I was trying to navigate the trauma and the heaviness. But I do want to read one more that I think transitions. It's a little heavy, but I think it's also embedded with some hope, or at the least imagination. I was asked to write a poem for an anthology that was published in Korea last year called The Motherland, and they asked 8 adopted Korean poets to write a poem about birth mothers or first mothers. And then there are also 8 birth or first mothers who wrote poems. It's a really wonderful anthology. And this is what I sent them. It's called How Music Stays in the Body. Your body is a song called Birth or First Mother, a miracle that gave birth to another exquisite song. One song raises 3 boys with a white husband. One song fought an American war overseas. One song leapt from 14 stories high and like a dead bird shattered into the clouds. Most forgot the lyrics to their own bodies and decided to paint abstracts of mountains or moons in the shape of your face. I've been told mothers don't forget the body. I can't remember your face, the shape or story, or how you held me the day I was born, so I wrote 1,000 poems to survive. I want to sing with you in an open field, a simple room, or a quiet bar. I want to hear your opinions about angels. Truth is, angels drink too. Soju spilled on the halo, white wings sticky with gin, as if any mother could forget the music that left her. You should hear how loudly I sing now. I've become a ballad of wild dreams and coping mechanisms. I can breathe now through any fire. I imagine I got this from him or you, my earthly inheritance. Your arms, your sigh, your heavy song. I know all the lyrics. I know all the blood. I know why angels howl into the moonlight. Okay, 2 more from the book. Exile. Our natural state is not defensive or tense, but water in a resting state. We state this to be true in an age of inquiry, our failure to put what is just before ease. There are lovers in another country reclining by a fire, admitting love in a common language with faith in the exiles of their state, where a woman looks at her friend and says, "Please, put down your bag and stay. Please, stay to see how the movie ends. Take my hand. I think the city might go up in flames." So I live in Fresno, but I was raised in the East Bay for a while, and it's so good to be up here for so many reasons. Seeing friends and doing things like this, but also just being close to the water. I don't know. Is that a thing where you just have to be by the water? Yeah. Is there a name for that? Anyway, you know, in Fresno, we have a pool, but like a creek, a river, like a mud puddle, happier. So I wanted to write a poem about just like the joys of a bath. So, bathe. Some acts require the whole body's attention. How a light song fills the auditorium. Little bath wave over arm, kite over wine, on your back in a porcelain heart. Tiny flowers near your head, so moist you could almost live there. The city crashing around your hips. The artists remembering the maps to their deep root. All the ache washed out. All the wine slipping down the throat. So, I'm going to read a few short paragraphs from this. I'm calling it a memoir in progress, but I don't know. And they're sort of out of order, but I'll pause briefly, and hopefully that'll give some continuity. My sadness began on the day I was born. I don't say this to be melodramatic, but it's true. Or what might be more true is that I inherited my birth mother and father's sadnesses. They must be regularly sad, vacant, or dreaming. What do you call a sadness you embody but do not know you embody? What I've learned about sadness is that it felt like something else when I was living it. Anxiety, fear, even paralysis. These were the manifestations, but it was sadness and loss by its real name. Sadness in the adopted person can mask itself. Good grades, girlfriends, a third beer, world travel. But if I were to describe it in its purest form, mine was like staring into a dark blue, almost black night, full of stars I couldn't name. Somehow, I came out the other side with a joy that no person or thing can ever take away. This is what I want to tell you about. How I was lost, how I was found. When I was under 5 months old, I might have been homeless. I never thought of it this way until recently, but if the stories of my adoption are true, and they most likely aren't, but one version is that I was left on the steps of a building and found soon thereafter. I was homeless for a very short time, probably not even a few minutes, until someone found me at a police station or church or the Daejeon Christian Social Center south of Seoul, where I spent a few months. It was late 1970 and I was an infant. And for those moments, I sat on the cold steps or the cold street, perhaps in a basket or with a blanket, and I was without a home. Or maybe I was never without a home. Maybe none of us is ever without a home if we re-envision it. Not as an address, zip code, or a welcome mat at the front door, but being loved and being able to be ourselves, at home, if you will. I was too young for this, pre-speech, pre-text. Was I predetermined to fight for home because of my adoption? Would I always struggle to feel at home because I was adopted to another country? Or if planet Earth is home, are we at home until we leave for the next realm, which is merely another home? Somewhere in South Korea, late 1970, there was a home in great distress, the home of my birth mother's body, my birth father's clouded heart, and the room in Korea where I was born with a head full of hair, a side eye already developed, and a fire in my heart that would burn for a lifetime. I'll just read this last one. Every now and then, I remember I was born on the other side of the earth, and it makes sense. I love looking up at the stars. It's such a childish thing to do, like climbing trees or stomping in puddles, building forts out of blankets. But there's some strange pull and a simple satisfaction from looking at the stars after all these years. I wonder if a man my age in Korea has the same love. I wonder how the stars relate to a gravitational likelihood that I'll tell my daughter someday about the time in our backyard, swimming in the moonlight, and the world seemed perfect. Or the time I dropped her off at her middle school in Fresno one cold winter, and before I drove off, she motioned for me to stop and fogged up the window with her breath and wrote with her finger, "I love you, Dad," with a heart, and the world seemed perfect. That's what it is about the stars. Because they're so many millions of miles away and so still, the immediate chaos or confusion of our lives seems so minor. Even in the daylight, they're right there. Imperceptible, but there. Something like faith or belief, or the wild idea that a deep kind of joy is there for you, even if you have no idea where it is. Thank you.